What would happen if the historic conflict of 2022 ended swiftly and a nation was completely occupied? What would the European Union and NATO do? Would the United States directly intervene militarily? Explore a dramatic historical divergence. In February 2022, the world held its breath as a major power attacked its neighbor, ushering in a turbulent chapter for modern history. In reality, resilient resistance and Western support prolonged the conflict, reshaping the world order and geopolitical relations. But what if the military campaign unfolded too quickly and the attacked nation collapsed within weeks? What would be the consequences? Historical events witnessed a prolonged and fierce conflict, where defending soldiers fought valiantly to protect sovereignty. Cities became battlefields. Every street, every building was the scene of fierce clashes. International support played a crucial role in sustaining resistance, turning the war into a protracted standoff. Fierce fighting, continuous gunfire, and explosions echoed across the fronts, testing everyone's courage. People faced daily fear and loss, but they did not surrender to the heavy pressure.
Status
the world
report.
watched. Every move on the battlefield was analyzed. Every decision was vital.
All systems nominal.
Diplomatic negotiations took place in parallel, but yielded no results, as each side held firm to its position. International solidarity, though at times wavering, remained a beacon of hope for the attacked nation. The prolonged standoff redefined the strength and will of nations in a turbulent world. In this hypothetical scenario, the initial attacks by the aggressor led to a rapid collapse. The capital was captured in less than a month. A puppet government was installed, declaring an end to the resistance. The EU and NATO's response focused on extreme economic sanctions and strengthening eastern flank defenses. As news of the swift collapse spread, a wave of panic and instability swept across Europe. Millions of people from the occupied nation, refusing to accept the new regime, massively migrated to EU countries. This created an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, putting heavy pressure on infrastructure and social services. Cities in Poland, Germany, and other nations struggled to accommodate and integrate large numbers of refugees. In the occupied nation, a new government, aligned with the aggressor, was quickly established. Despite declarations of normalization, deep inside, dissatisfaction and underground resistance still simmered. Strict surveillance was imposed, and all dissenting voices were suppressed, creating an atmosphere of fear. On the international stage, the EU and NATO faced the harsh reality of a war that had ended. Economic sanctions were immediately imposed on a scale and severity far exceeding reality. However, their effectiveness was limited by the fact that the war had ended, allowing the aggressor to consolidate internal power. The energy crisis worsened as Europe rushed to find alternative supply sources. This pushed prices to record highs and threatened the economic stability of the entire region, causing widespread insecurity. In NATO meeting rooms, heated debates ensued over activating Article 5 or significantly increasing military presence. Ultimately, a common decision was made. No direct intervention, but increased troops and hardware in bordering countries. Thousands of new soldiers, advanced air defense systems, and large-scale exercises were continuously deployed. The border between the two blocs transformed into a new Iron Curtain, tense and dangerous. The United States, despite its firm commitment to NATO, did not directly send troops into the conflict zone. Instead, Washington increased military and intelligence aid to NATO members in Eastern Europe. At the same time, it sought to completely isolate the aggressor diplomatically and economically on the international stage. This event sparked a fierce internal debate in the United States about its role in the New World Order.
I strongly disagree with that statement.
The world entered an era of Cold War 2.0, with a more aggressive major power. And a deeply divided Europe with new boundaries formed, not only geographically, but also ideologically. Cybersecurity threats surged. Information warfare became commonplace, shaking trust. Trust in international organizations was severely eroded, making the global system fragile. Other nations around the world began to question their own defense capabilities, leading to an underground arms race. And a shift in traditional alliances, as some nations sought new partners to protect their interests. Food crises also erupted in many places due to disruptions in supply from the occupied region, causing social and political instability in developing countries, further undermining global stability. This was a world where hope for an international order based on law had been shaken to its roots. The refugee crisis continued to weigh heavily on host countries, forcing them to adopt difficult policies. Eastern European nations felt abandoned, their trust in the alliance tested when facing a powerful aggressor. Internal conflicts within the EU escalated between members advocating for direct confrontation and those wanting to avoid escalation. The aggressor consolidated its position, using the occupied nation's resources to boost its economic power. The aggressor's dominance spread, threatening other neighboring countries, altering the regional balance of power. Underground resistance movements in the occupied nation received secret support but faced many difficulties. People under the new regime lived in fear, every action closely monitored by the authorities. Information control became extreme, independent media completely suppressed. The education system was reformed to serve propaganda. History was rewritten, distorting the truth. Scientists, intellectuals, and artists were forced to leave the country or remain silent under the new regime. Europe faced prolonged economic instability as supply chains were severely disrupted. Record high energy prices became a huge burden for businesses and households, leading to a wave of bankruptcies. EU governments struggled to maintain public support, facing anger and frustration. The US increased its military presence on NATO's eastern flank, but did not cross the red line of direct intervention. The Baltic states and Poland became the new front lines of a Cold War 2.0, with escalating military tension. Large-scale military exercises were continuous, creating an atmosphere of constant confrontation. Cybersecurity became an invisible battlefield, with continuous attacks on critical infrastructure. Information warfare became commonplace, spreading fake news and causing public panic. Suspicion and social division increased in European countries due to refugee pressure and economic instability. Anti-government and anti-immigrant protests erupted, weakening the continent's unity. The United States faced a more complex foreign policy, balancing deterrence and avoiding escalation. New alliances were formed in the changing geopolitical landscape, creating a new global power map. Food crises caused severe social instability in Africa and the Middle East. This threatened to disrupt social structures, leading to new migrations and increasing pressure on neighboring countries. Global financial markets were in turmoil. Investors lost confidence, leading to a deep economic recession.
No.
Governments faced increasing pressure to raise defense spending while revenues declined. The rise of non-state actors became more prevalent, exploiting chaos to expand their influence. The underground arms race became more overt as nations rushed to increase their arsenals. Southeast Asian and Asian countries also felt the reverberations of global instability, changing their foreign policies. The prolonged energy and food crises forced nations to reshape their economies and societies. The world faced an uncertain future, where old rules no longer applied and new threats emerged. The scenario of a swift military victory painted a bleak picture of an unstable Europe and a tense world order. Thank you for joining history's forked path and exploring this hypothetical historical path. What do you think would happen next?